Game. Start.
This story also took place in Bangui, but somewhat earlier, about a year earlier than this. We heard that there were some settlement of pygmies, and we decided we're going to go visit them. All the people, there were not many, from our embassy, and we would go in a convoy of 4 or 5 cars we were, driving up to a certain point, and then where the bruise began, where the brush began, we couldn't take the car anymore, and we had to walk for about an hour. We just left the cars where the brush began, where there were no more paved, any kind of roads. I'm not talking about paved roads, I'm talking even dirt roads, but they were just little paths to walk in, inside the bushes, and we walked in there in a row. First we drove, our uniformed driver was the first. He drove first. He was the only native one, and I suppose he knew the road. He knew how to get there. He didn't need Waze. He didn't use Waze. He knew how to get there. And we finally got to this village of pygmies. Now, pygmies are little people with big heads. They're much more, it's not proportionate to their body. Their heads are much bigger, and then their bodies are short. And they live separate in their villages. I don't know how many villages there are in the Central African Republic, but this is the one we knew of, and we came to visit. Now, they welcomed us. They knew that we were coming, or maybe didn't know, but they saw that we came, and welcomed us with their songs and dance. We didn't understand a word that they were saying. They had their own language, not even the language of Sango, which is the language of the Central African Republic, together with the official French. They didn't know Sango. They had their own language, their own dialect, and their houses were very low. Even they had to bend down, short as they were, they had to bend down to get into their huts. Why they were so low, I don't understand, because if it was protection against wild animals, the wild animals were lower than they could get in. So I don't know what the point was. We brought them gifts. What was the most valuable gift we could bring them? You wouldn't guess. The most valuable gift we could give them was what they didn't have and what they wanted very much for their food, and that was salt. They had no salt, but I brought them bags of salt. How did they feed themselves? What kind of food did they have? They had poisoned arrows with which they killed animals. They killed those animals and they roasted them on fire. And if they didn't eat the whole animal, if they needed to preserve it, they certainly didn't have refrigerators, and they certainly didn't have ice. They dug a hole in the earth, and that became their refrigerator. This is how their food kept. So they went and danced for us. They performed for us special dances, special songs. We gave them our gift to them, for which they were very grateful. They are not. They have no privileges in the Central African Republic. They are not considered citizens. They were not able to vote or express anything that any normal inhabitant of a country who would be a citizen could have. They had no schools. They had no hospitals. I don't know how long they lived. We couldn't ask them because obviously we had no speech, no common speech with them. But that gives me an idea. I'm going to look them up on Google. At that time there was no Google, so I couldn't look them up. But I could do that now and find out how they live, how long they live, how they manage without the institutions that we in other countries manage, and what they do apart from trying to survive, which is probably their most important activity. I don't think they read. They may be telling stories about their ancestors. They probably have a kind of a cemetery where they bury their dead. But more than that, I don't know. Whether they worship the sun or the moon, I don't know. I don't know anything about what they believe, but if I look it up now, or if I look it up sometime in the near future, I will come back and tell you. Okay?
Okay.
That's
Thank
the end
you.
of my story.